In the quietude of distant monasteries and the hum of chanting in ancient shrines, the profound teachings of the Buddha still echo. Yet like whispers lost in the winds of time, these teachings are often misunderstood. In lands far from where the lotus first bloomed, misconceptions continue to bloom in their place, born not only of innocent ignorance but also of deliberate misrepresentations by opposing faiths and systems. The radiant simplicity and subtle transcendence of the Dharma, so difficult to define, so easy to distort, have led many to view Buddhism merely as a religion, when in truth it is both a religion and a sublime philosophy, a science of life that speaks to the very soul of existence. Unlike many systems in any other region, which often separate life into compartments of belief and intellect, Buddhism embraces the entire spectrum of being. It gazes upon life not as a series of isolated events, but as a vast, interwoven dance, beginningless, endless, sacred. From the humblest of crawling creatures to beings of unimaginable spiritual attainment, all are seen as travelers on the same infinite path. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Buddhism, especially among those raised in Western religious traditions, is its view of the soul. Many have been taught to believe in an eternal, personal essence, created by divine hands, destined to live forever in joy or torment. But Buddhism gently yet firmly reveals the illusion within this idea. It teaches that anything with a beginning must also have an end. That which is born in time cannot be beyond time's grasp. The notion of a fixed, unchanging soul, Atma in Sanskrit, is, in Buddhist understanding, not a truth but a tether. It binds the mind, not in liberation but in limitation. It causes human beings to cling to identity, to resist impermanence, to wander endlessly in samsara, the great cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Yet the Buddha did not deny consciousness. He illuminated its true nature. He revealed that what we call the self is like a candle's flame, present in this moment, yet never quite the same as the flame a moment before. It is not the same, and yet not entirely different. There is continuity, but not permanence. Imagine a man of 70, sitting under the sky, reflecting on his youth. The boy he once was, the laughter, the tears, the dreams, has faded into memory. And yet something flowed from that child into this elder. Not a fixed self, but a stream of becoming. So too the old man who dies is not the same as the child who is reborn, but the current of karma flows unbroken. There is causality, not identity. This, perhaps, is the heart of Buddhist psychology. A truth difficult to grasp and often misunderstood. In most cases, memory does not pass from life to life, but something deeper does. Beneath the mundane mind lies a subtler reality, a microcosmic reflection of the vast supramundane mind. This impersonal principle, unborn, unshaped, beyond all names, persists through all conditions of being. It is not a soul in the conventional sense. It has no face, no story, no boundaries. It is like the sky behind the clouds, unchanged even as the clouds pass. This principle is not the personality, not the ego, not the thoughts we grasp so tightly. Those are illusions, waves that rise and fall upon the surface of the ocean. Beneath them is the deep stillness, the true state. The Buddha spoke not to confirm old dogmas, but to open the gate to freedom. Liberation, nirvana, is not the reward of faith, but the fruit of awakening. It is not the preservation of the self, but the realization that the self is a mirage. So long as we cling to that mirage, so long as we thirst for form and feeling, the wheel of samsara turns. But when we awaken, when we truly see, the illusion dissolves and only pure awareness remains. This is the supreme aim of the Dharma, the deliverance of the mind. Not deliverance into paradise, nor into eternal identity, but into truth. As the Buddha once declared, the gain of the holy life is neither alms, nor honor, nor fame, neither the virtues of the order nor the bliss of meditation, but the fixed, unalterable deliverance of the mind. This, O disciples, is the heart of the path. This is its purpose. This is its goal. The mind referred to here is not our fleeting thoughts or daily perceptions. It is the mind that mirrors the universe, microcosm of the macrocosm. To deliver this mind is to pierce through illusion, to awaken from the dream of separateness, to transcend the flickering of the personal self and realize the radiance of the formless. Beneath all thought, beneath all desire, beneath all memory and name, there lies a luminous stillness, a mind untouched by time, unborn and undying. This is the Buddha mind, the true state. It is not to be believed in, but realized. Not to be worshipped, but awakened to. To know this truth is to be free, not merely in thought, but in the deepest silence of being. And so, the path of the Buddha is not a denial of life, but a great affirmation. It is the lotus rising through the mud, the moon shining through clouds, the self dissolving into light. It is the homecoming of the soul that never was. In the silent depths of human experience, beyond thought and emotion, beyond the noise of the world, lies a truth that cannot be spoken, only realized. It is this truth that the Buddha awakened to beneath the Bodhi tree. A truth not bound by belief or ritual, but illuminated through direct insight. And yet, for those standing outside this sacred light, misconceptions still cloud its brilliance, especially when it comes to the mind, the soul, and nirvana. At the heart of Buddhist understanding is a profound insight. The mundane mind, the mind we use every day, the one caught in emotion, memory, and craving, is not our true self. It is but a flickering shadow, a momentary dance of illusions arising from the five skandhas: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. These are the building blocks of what we call self, yet they are no more permanent than the wind through trees or ripples across a pond. The mundane mind, then, is not a solid entity, but a life flux, an ever-burning flame fueled by worldly desires, ambitions, and attachments. This flame, though appearing bright and strong, is fragile. It is restless. It is temporary. And it is this flame that binds us to samsara, the endless cycle of birth and death, of becoming and forgetting. But the Buddha offered a way out, a path, step by step, that leads from illusion to illumination. Like a fire that dies when starved of fuel, the burning of the life flux begins to subside when a seeker turns away from the pleasures of the senses and the illusions of the ego. When one ceases to delight in craving, when ambition no longer stirs the heart, when the attachments to name and form are loosened, the fire begins to dim. This is the first glimmer of liberation. At the very first step on the spiritual path, through the practice of yoga, not merely physical postures, but a disciplined training of mind and being, nirvana becomes the object, the shining star toward which the mundane mind can now direct its gaze. As flint and steel create fire when rightly struck, so too can the five skandhas, when rightly understood, be transformed into the means of awakening. In the figure of the Arhat, the one who has perfected the path, we see the fruition of this transformation. The Arhat is not one who escapes life, but one who transcends its illusions. Freed from greed, hatred, fear, and desire, he uproots the seeds of karmic existence from the very depths of his being. Though he remains in a human body with the five skandhas still intact, his inner flame no longer clings to fuel. At his physical death, these too are relinquished, and with them, the last trace of the mundane mind. What remains is the supermundane mind, pure, luminous, boundless. This is deliverance of the mind. It is not the end of being, but the beginning of boundless awareness. From this perspective, Buddhism is not a faith to be believed, but a yoga to be lived, a deep training of body, speech, and mind. The Buddha did not speak merely of heavens and hells, but of siddhis, spiritual accomplishments that unfold through awakening. Among these are the recollection of past lives, the transcendence of conditioned existence, and the capacity to move freely through the infinite halls of samsara, like a lion wandering unbound across the mountain ranges. The cosmos, too, is a living rhythm of death and rebirth. It breathes through cycles without beginning or end. And behind it all, the one mind dreams, the source, the sustainer, and the silent witness of all. Perhaps no Buddhist concept has been as misunderstood as nirvana. To many, it appears as a great void, an annihilation of all being. But this interpretation misses the subtle beauty of what nirvana truly is. The Sanskrit word nirvana means blowing out or cooling, as if extinguishing a flame. But it's not the being that is extinguished, only its illusions. It is the going out of the three fires: desire, kama, ill will, devesha, and ignorance, avidya. When these fires are extinguished, not in suppression, but through transformation, they become purity, loving kindness, and wisdom. In that sacred cooling, the inner conflagration of suffering comes to rest, and in its place dawns the serene radiance of perfect knowledge. The great Indian masters who translated the Buddha's teachings into Tibetan understood this. They rendered nirvana as Maya Ngan Med, the sorrowless state, a condition beyond all suffering, not through escape, but through realization. To the fully enlightened one, death is not an end but a release, the final parinirvana, the complete going out of the skandhas, the final severing of bondage to illusion. The human being, long caught in the cocoon of karmic desire, breaks free, like a butterfly, radiant and free, ascending beyond the reach of craving. But nirvana is not a final destination. It is not a static paradise in the sky, nor a condition reserved for the dead. It is a state of awakening available here in this very life. It is not confined by death. It is not a place, but a realization. What words can describe that which transcends thought? If two enlightened ones met in human form, they might look into each other's eyes and know nirvana. But even their most sacred words would fail to explain it to the unweakened. For nirvana is unborn, unmade, unconditioned. It is the escape from all that is born, made, and conditioned. And so, when critics say that Buddhism teaches the annihilation of the soul, they speak not from understanding but from fear. Fear of losing the illusion they've clung to. But the Buddha taught not annihilation, but transcendence. Not the destruction of being, but its transformation. Not the death of the self, but the realization that the self never truly was. When man is no longer man, when he has blown out the flame of ego, when he no longer seeks to possess or to become, when he ceases to cling to even the subtlest identity, then, in that space of utter stillness, nirvana is. It cannot be spoken. It can only be known, not through belief, but through awakening. For centuries, the others have gazed upon the spiritual heights of Buddhism with fascination and inquiry. Yet the true depth of its wisdom remains largely concealed beneath layers of language, culture, and time. What the Occidental world has come to know of Buddhism is but a delicate ripple upon the surface of a vast and ancient ocean, its true current still untouched, its depth still unfathomed. Such misconceptions and partial understandings are not born of neglect, but of the sheer immensity and complexity of the task at hand. Only within the last 50 years has the other region mind begun to turn its scholarly gaze with earnest focus toward Buddhism. Yet even today, our grasp of its intricate philosophies, its layered doctrines, and its vast textual tradition remains profoundly incomplete. The southern and northern schools of Buddhism, preserved in the Pāli and Tibetan canons respectively, contain a treasury of spiritual insight. Despite the admirable efforts of the Pāli Text Society in editing and publishing critical editions of the tripitaka, meaning 3 baskets, only a modest fraction of these sacred texts has been rendered into other religion tongues, and those few translations that do exist often struggle to convey the subtle grace and profound experiential wisdom embedded in the original Pāli language, a language shaped not just by grammar, but by meditative silence and transcendental experience. The Tripitaka, the Suttapitaka, discourses, the Vinaya Pitaka, monastic code, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, philosophical analysis, comprise a universe of thought, a carefully woven fabric of human psychology, ethics, and metaphysics. To walk through its corridors is to hear the heartbeat of a tradition that seeks not blind faith but awakening. Yet for most in the West, these hallowed halls remain dimly lit, glimpsed only through academic outlines or selective quotes devoid of context. If the Southern canon remains under-translated and underappreciated, the Northern canon is even more obscure. The Tibetan canon, divided into the Kangyur, translation of the word, and the Kangyur, translation of the commentaries, is a colossal body of literature, unparalleled in its range. It holds within it thousands of texts, from sutras spoken by the Buddha himself to intricate tantric commentaries, manuals on meditation, metaphysics, logic, medicine, astrology, and the very architecture of consciousness. Yet to this day, the majority of these texts remain locked in the sacred syllables of classical Tibetan, untouched by many translators, unsung by many voices. What little the West has gleaned from Tibetan Buddhism has often come from secondary sources, introductory commentaries, or the inspiring yet isolated encounters with living Tibetan teachers in exile. The true breadth of the Tibetan Canon remains a mystery, an unexplored continent in the spiritual geography of the modern world. And still beyond lies the Chinese Buddhist Canon, known reverently as the Sanzang or Three Treasures. Like the others, it remains largely veiled to others' understanding. It too holds not merely words, but worlds, an entire civilization's spiritual striving encoded in ink and prayer. To attempt a conclusive summary of Buddhism, its history, its philosophy, or its religious heart, based solely on the current, fragmentary translations would be akin to describing the moon after glimpsing only its reflection in a pond. The light may be real, even beautiful, but it does not yet reveal the whole. There is, therefore, a noble task that lies ahead, a spiritual endeavor as grand as any pilgrimage. It is the task of deep and reverent scholarship, of translation not merely of words but of wisdom. This is no work for the faint-hearted. It calls for a rare fusion of intellectual precision and spiritual receptivity. It asks of us humility, the humility to admit what we do not know, and the courage to journey into the unknown. Until that journey is complete, until more of the sacred texts are carefully translated, and more of the Buddhist tradition is allowed to speak in its own voice, the West must recognize that its understanding is still a beginning. And perhaps there is beauty in that beginning, in the sense of mystery that surrounds the Dharma, in the invitation it extends to seekers not to conclude, but to inquire, not to summarize, but to listen. For Buddhism is not merely a doctrine or a historical movement. It is a path walked by countless beings across ages, through deserts of doubt and forests of contemplation, to the clear sunlit peak of awakening. Its teachings cannot be boxed within other categories, or neatly mapped onto familiar intellectual frameworks. They must be lived, breathed, and slowly absorbed like morning light through mountain mist. The incompleteness of our knowledge, then, is not a deficiency, it is a call to scholarship, to devotion, to respectful curiosity, a call to peer beyond our limited horizons and allow the vastness of the Dharma to unfold before us, not as a set of doctrines to master, but as a sacred landscape to enter. In this spirit, may the future be one of deeper understanding, not only through texts and translations, but through heartfelt engagement. May the wisdom sleeping in ancient scrolls find new life in new hearts, and may East and West together walk the timeless path, not toward domination of knowledge, but toward the liberation of all sentient beings.